There's an old lady behind you, and you're an asshole. Can you hurry it up? I whirled to face the accuser behind me in line, nostrils already mid-flare in apprehension of the can of whoop-ass I was prepared to peel open. I had waited in this line as long as everyone ahead of me and those behind me could suffer through the same monotony. Listen, you over-hasty sack of social incompetency. I had begun my tirade as I had planned, but fell short when I saw the subject of my aggression. The woman had to have been in her late 80s, the wrinkles that hung from her face both endearing and disgustingly waxy, and the bright green eyes betrayed a soul much younger than the body it had to be lugged around in. A soul still capable of judgment to an aggressive youth, such as myself. Shit. 2 sapphire, I thought. They could have just as easily been 2 blue marbles superglued to her earlobes for all the fine jewelry experience I had attained over my 17 years of angst, adorned her ears and bobbled against her neck, disappearing behind gray folds with each adjustment of her head. I am so sorry. The words came out as more of a verbal slushy than anything comprehensible or apologetic. I'm so sorry, this is a more accurate depiction. The wind taken out of my sails before I could even finish my assumedly well-crafted insult and given her a well-deserved tongue lashing for her impatience. How I had managed to make it as far through the derogatory epithet as I had without realizing that only one type of person produced a voice that wizened was beyond me, but the embarrassment clung to the forefront of my thoughts. Fuck, wow, that's not what I meant to say. I am so sorry. Of course I can hurry it up. I thought you were another one of those skinheads that keep whack-a-moling their way into this town. It's ridiculous. I don't know where they're coming from. Don't make excuses for your being a little shit. I've half a mind to clean your mouth out with this aerosol and then make you sniff your own asshole just so you know how absolutely full of shit you are. I retreated a step, and my tongue slid to the back of my throat in a sour mixture of shame and shock at the vulgarity of my new senior acquaintance. What was I supposed to say as a response to that sort of snide whipping? Thank you for putting me in my place? Congratulations for still having the spunk to make me look like a bitch? Whatever the appropriate response, I had no time to give it before she forced her way past my still statuesque figure. Either pay or get out of the way, she rhymed as I watched my groceries forced to the end of the conveyor and subsequently across the floor. I looked to the cashier for support against what was clearly a demon in a bad Betty White disguise and found snickering instead, a knowledgeable glint flashing from the corner of her eyes. She knew this lady. This was not a new experience, and I just happened to be the most recent victim of her vindictive personality. I know, I started the conflict initially, but can you blame me for feeling like the underage victim in this scenario? Bending at the waist to scoop up the assortment of vegetables, mostly broccoli, if I'm honest, that had been geriatrically strewn across the linoleum floor, I noticed the spurs jutting from each heel respectively, glinting in a much more malevolent manner than the knowing eyes of the cashier. I gave the thought of getting one of those spurs stuck in my face a moment of limelight before I was on my feet again, huffing indignantly at the balding rear of her head. There we go. The top of your head looks like a melanoma-riddled egg that's been polished by years of negative intentions, had slithered out of my mouth before I could make an effort to cut it short. And the apparently previously tempered senior citizen whirled with a speed contradictory to her hunched stature. Do I have to repeat myself? You don't want to go down this rabbit hole, sweetie. The only thing you'll find at the bottom is my foot for your ass to land on. The spur upon her right heel made a surprisingly intimidating chime as her heel stamped for emphasis. All 5 feet of her existence turned up in a sour expression of someone who's done with the day's shit before it's even begun. I have spent the last 96 years of this miserable existence thinking up ways to prove to your youthful ass that you are, in fact, a scourge on both society and my line of sight. I've earned the right to be an asshole, and I won't be subject to whatever half-assed comments you can squeeze out of the shitter in your face before you start crying, so you may as well jump to the good part and let me buy my goddamn fancy feast in peace. The pursed lips of the cashier betrayed the effort to hide a snicker of the aghast expression that had renewed itself across my face. I couldn't even bash her ridiculous-looking boots without worrying that she'd drag me down to whatever pits of hell she had woken up in that morning. I blinked in unison with the beeping of the item scanner without intending to, and had a brief respite of the shame of her declarations as I admired the coincidence. Anything to take my mind off of my floor broccoli long enough to let her leave. After what seemed like an eternity of quiet shuffling and averted eyes, she had finished, and I bit my tongue against the comment of her own slow-paced interaction with the again emotionless cashier. I deserved at least that much for opening a can of worms I couldn't handle, rather than the can of kick-ass I had pulled from my pocket. Finally, I dumped the contents of my cart back onto the conveyor to restart the process, avoiding eye contact with anyone that it happened to be a possibility with. I know you just went through some shit, kid, but I'm in a hurry, was all I could hear as soon as I had wrangled my wallet from the folds of my pocket and I scanned my posterior horizon to identify who could possibly still be asking me to expedite this process. My gaze landed upon the top of the very same woman who had just usurped my spot in both line and dignity and left a trail of confusion in her wake. I had just opened my mouth to express this confusion before she interjected with the now much less malevolent glint in her eyes returning. Nah, I'm just fucking with you, whatever your name is. Don't be an asshole. And spend less on broccoli, you're clearly broke. She chortled that last comment as she looped around me for a second exit, and I watched her go just as, if not much more, flabbergasted at the sudden change of tone she exhibited. Can't believe she's 96. Old people are weird, was all I could muster to the cashier, who nodded sagely in response and spoke in that gentle, maternal tone reserved for panicking children. Congrats on your sudden epiphany. Don't spend it all in one place. I blinked again. Listen, please don't make this weirder for me. So that one had a bit of an abrupt end because if you didn't know, I have a very short attention span and I'll make it about 4 pages and then forget what the entire subject was.